This is ABTV, Animal Bites Television.
Guys, I'm here at the Reptile Zoo in Monroe, Washington, and this place is absolutely adorable. But one of the things I want to start off by saying is you're going to see me with these gloves on for pretty much the entire show, and I think it's absolutely awesome that they're so concerned about their animals that they're really, really good about their hygiene. And of course, what I have here is the coolest rattlesnake in North America. Of course, the Eastern Diamondback Rattlesnake, surely the largest rattlesnake. And these guys are actually responsible for probably the most bites. But the thing that most people don't realize is that only a very small percentage of the bites are actually fatal, typically less than 1%. They have some pretty dirty hemotoxin that's going to really make you feel really bad for a couple days. But fortunately, there's been incredible strides when it comes to not only the typical antivenin, but also the crow fab with these guys. But of course, they're a pit viper, so they have those big pits in the front of their face that are heat pits that are just waiting for things, and they have nice fangs that recurve into the back of their mouth. You don't want to get bit by something like this, but look at the head on that animal right there. The Reptile Zoo has some awesome animals. This is going to be a really cool show. My name is Brian Barczyk. I'm no zoologist, just a guy with a passion for animals. And that passion often takes me on animal adventures around the world. This week, I'm in Monroe, Washington, outside of Seattle, at the Reptile Zoo. So again, just to back up for a second and explain why we're using such precaution as far as keeping so sanitary. It's not that there's anything wrong here. It's about, making sure that nothing gets spread from one animal to another, or even someone that comes into the collection that might spread to something else. So really, this is something that even I'm learning that's pretty darn cool, that maybe a lot of facilities, and even my facility, should start thinking about. So essentially, once you have your gloves and you touch something, they're kind of soiled, right? So you have to make sure you're taking your gloves off every single time. Of course, you could wash your hands, but if you're taking care of 100 animals a day, you're washing your hands 100 times a day, it's going to be a little bit of a problem, right? But of course, now the next problem is as soon as I've touched this glove and put this on, now I've put any bacteria from me onto the glove. Again, it's just kind of a wild experience, but to be honest with you, this is really smart, because if you want to make sure that your animals are always healthy, there's some pretty nasty bacteria out there and even viruses out there that can spread pretty easily. And if that starts going through a collection as beautiful as this, it's going to be a big problem. So once we have our gloves on, of course, we have to make sure that they're what Isaac would call level 1, which is the only time that you can actually touch an animal. So we want to make sure we're spraying F10 on the gloves itself. Now we're ready for the next animal. Certainly, I think one of the prettiest North American at least rattlesnakes would be the timber rattlesnakes. These guys really range all the way from pretty southeast all the way up into the New Hampshire area, and they're just one of the most beautiful snakes. And of course, they're also known to be kind of one of the more mellow rattlesnakes. Don't get me wrong, you still don't want to get bit by them or handle them like a corn snake, but these guys typically are a little less reluctant to strike. And of course, these are something that you'll see a lot in the churches that kind of handle snakes, which I think is absolutely stupid as could be. But the reason they'll use these a lot of times is because they are a little less likely to bite. But if you get bit by them, it's not going to be a good situation. As a matter of fact, there's been some pockets of timber rattlesnakes that they've seen that the proteins in them are pretty nasty, whereas other areas, they're a relatively mild bite. And one of the real big issues with timber rattlesnakes right now is the fact that up in the northeast where they're ranging, there's a fungal issue that's basically devastating populations. In some areas, timber rattlesnakes have dropped up to 80 to 90% population. So it's very important for people to understand the importance of conservation of these animals, because timber rattlesnakes are in danger, and if it's not going to be taken care of over the next 10 or 12 years, we may see this beautiful animal no longer around. Really, the animal I'm about to show you has got a soft spot in my heart when it comes to venomous snakes, probably because it was the very first venomous snake that I kept when I was about 17 years old. Of course, my mom didn't know I was keeping it. I hope she doesn't watch this show, but this is, of course, is the Copperhead. And for some reason, I've just always thought they were amazing little vipers, but you gotta be a little bit careful. These guys have a relatively mild venom. You certainly aren't gonna die if you get bit by something like this. But again, you don't want to get bit if you don't have to get bit. There's no badges of honor for something like that. These guys have amazing camouflage. And again, the venom is relatively mild, and ironically enough, this is the other snake that you see oftentimes in the church handlers, again, because they're relatively mild-mannered, but it's not something that you want to get bit by if you can avoid it whatsoever. Just look at that beautiful snake. Take a look at this beauty here. I've been working with Pituophis for probably 20 years, and this is a cool one here. You guys know that I love the Mexican black kings. Well, this happens to be a black pine snake. These guys kind of range all the way from Florida all the way up into the Mississippi area and even into the Carolinas. Unfortunately, these guys just got added to the Endangered Species Act, which basically just means that you can no longer cross state lines with them, which is a bummer because for the last 20 or 25 years, these have been a staple in the pet trade and now no longer can be traded across state lines. People just love the big black snakes like the indigos and the Mexican black kings, so the black pines are a great addition to that. And there's actually a color mutation that's called a black pine pied, which is just basically a white splotch black pine snake. And it's not like the piebald ball pythons, like 80 or 90%, only about 10%. And you can see this guy here, maybe he's a little hissy because he's starting to shed, which is a bummer because I don't want to mess with him too much. So I'm going to get him back in his cage so I don't stress him out too much. But man, that black pine is absolutely gorgeous. So there, take a look at this, guys. The king of all snakes. Of course, Ophiophagus hannah, the king cobra. Some say, and I would certainly believe, that this is the most intelligent snake potentially on the planet. And a lot of people think that the king cobra is the most venomous or deadly snake on the planet, but the truth is it's really not. When it comes to actual toxicity, this probably doesn't even make the top 10. But the fact is if you ever were to get bit by something like this, they have such an amazing amount of venom yield that they just absolutely pump it into you. So you definitely don't want to get tagged by something like this. And of course, it's the longest venomous snake in the entire world. I've seen pictures of these guys getting close to 15 or 16 foot long and pretty heavy bodied as well. So when you come across a snake like this out in the wild, you can only imagine how incredible it must feel to actually see something like this. But the one thing is that these guys are known for mock charging, just like they did right there. When they give you that mock charge, that means stay away. Every time I've ever handled a king cobra, it's one of the most exhilarating experiences you can ever imagine. Just holding a snake that is just known as the king of all snakes. I tell you, your heart gets pumping, and it's just such an amazing experience to be around such a majestic snake. There's really so many amazing snakes here, but I want to get started with a snake that really deserves a tremendous amount of respect. And of course, that's the black mamba. These guys are pound for pound maybe the sketchiest snake that you'll ever handle. I think that only taipans maybe rival them, to be honest with you. They're long, they're slender, and they're fast as all can get out. Woo, just look at the size of that snake. Oh, let me see if I can get this guy out here. Now that is a long snake. Now the thing about black mambas, not only are they the largest and longest venomous snake in Africa, and most people consider them to be one of the deadliest snakes, but the truth is they have a really big venom yield. Oh, I gotta just try to get this guy out of here. And the thing is, why I'm using grabbers on this guy is typically you want to use grabbers to block it from coming back at you. Mambas are really notorious for coming back, and as long as you can get about a third of the body trapped, you can see I'm not squeezing it whatsoever. I'm just basically making sure that when he's coming this way, that I've got his body blocked A couple of things you have to be really cautious with when you're dealing with black mambas is the fact that they like to climb a lot. So when you have a stick like this, they can climb up your hand as quick as you can imagine. So you have to always be on guard tremendously with an animal like this. The other thing you can kind of see in my left hand right here is that they actually will kind of hold on to you as much as you're holding on to them, which makes it kind of scary because when you're handling most elapids, the truth is you can let it go and just, hey, if things are going to go wrong, just go ahead and bail on it right now. With a black mamba, they hold on to you, so it makes it a little bit more sketchy. This guy is acting completely mellow right now. And of course, a black mamba, oftentimes people wonder why they're called black because they're kind of more of an olive green color or sometimes a gray color. The truth is that inside their mouth is solid black, and that is why they call them the black mamba. And of course, they're known for that coffin-shaped head. And I tell you what, although these guys may only have the top 20 most potent venom, they will really pump you with venom if you ever get hit. And these guys are very shy animals. They don't want to bite you if they don't have to, but once you encounter them, they are willing to bite right away. And it's not uncommon for a mamba to sometimes bite 2 or 3 times by the time you actually let it go. So that's why these guys are so dangerous, but also truly incredible. Take a look at this beast right here. This happens to be a black-throated monitor named Samson. This is truly incredible. And of course, these guys are from a pretty small area in Africa, and one of the largest monitor lizards there. Maybe only really larger animal over there would be the Nile monitor, but these guys are really heavy-bodied, and these are a lot less cantankerous than the Nile monitors for sure. As you can see, Samson is just kind of chilling out here, but don't get you wrong, man, with those powerful claws and that big heavy tail that has an opportunity to whip you. I mean, look at that tail. It's probably 3 or 4 foot long. If this guy was a little bit upset and I got anywhere within 3 or 4 foot, it would just smack me with that tail, and then those powerful claws. Man, you don't want to be on the end of that one. And then look at these jaws right here. Hey, Samson, wake up. This little guy's just hanging out doing whatever he wants to do. But this is an awesome animal. I've always wanted a black-throat monitor just because of this, because I thought it would be cool to have this big monster, almost little dinosaur that's super tame. And again, in the wild, these guys will eat almost anything they can overpower. It's not uncommon, believe it or not, for these guys to even eat cobras. If they can get it in their mouth, they're gonna eat it. These guys are really cool. Samson here is an awesome animal. This guy is truly amazing. I've always loved crocodilians. Of course, this is an American alligator named Barnabas. He's about a 25-year-old male, and as you can see, he's a little bit defensive right now. He's kind of checking me out going, what are you about to do? But typically, alligators are pretty docile animals. They're not gonna run around and grab me or anything like that. He's more like worried about me messing with him. So as long as I stay back a little bit, we're all pretty safe. With any luck, we can get Barnabas in the water and go ahead and feed him. Now that's gonna be a real treat. Come on, boy. Come on, boy. In the water. In the water. Come on. Come on. Come on. Get in there. You're okay, bud. Yes. There you go. There you go. How cool is that? And here we go. Barnabas knows the routine here. There you go, buddy. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. Come on. You got it. One more. There you go. What a completely awesome animal that is. I tell you what, some people might like dogs, but I think that if I had a pet, I want a pet like Barnabas. I mean, this has been an absolute blast. Whew. Here's a workout too. Now this is an absolute pleasure. Of course, this is an albino alligator, and they've been being reproduced over the last several years, but what's interesting about this one right here is the fact that it's one of the original ones. It's about 15 or 16 years old, so there was only a handful of albino alligators back then, and this is one of the original ones. It's really amazing to be this close to this guy. Whew. He is a little bit of a pistol though, but what an amazing animal. I tell you, albino alligators are truly one of the most beautiful creatures on the planet. And really, when they get older, a lot of them start to get more green from algae and dirty. So this guy right here is really beautiful. It's probably the best example of an adult albino alligator I've ever seen. I tell you, the reptile zoo up here has been so impressive. Every single animal is kept amazingly, and this animal here, Basker, is certainly one of the cream of the crop for sure. If you guys are ever in the Monroe area or Seattle area, you've got to come pay this place a visit. It is absolutely my Disneyland by a long shot. As always, guys, I was Facebooking and tweeting my way through things, so make sure to follow me over at SnakeBytesTV or on Instagram at SnakeBytes.tv, and make sure to look up the Reptile Zoo in Monroe, Washington. Until next week, you've been watching Snake Bites.
Hi, I'm Peter Birch, an Aussie bloke who loves wildlife. My respect for nature started when I was a young boy in rural New South Wales. Since then, it's exploded into an obsession. New episodes every Thursday, only on AnimalBytesTV.
I think if she ever heard about it, she would definitely not be very happy with me whatsoever.